Welcome back to another episode of OpenRCT2 tutorials. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build your very own Paratrooper Ride. Now, this simple carnival ride is also known as the Parachutes Ride or the Umbrella Ride, just because of the shape of the ride vehicles. And there's also another variation where the riders face forward and backwards called the Star Trooper. But in OpenRCT2, this is a pretty simple shoestring, so let's get started. First, I'm going to mark off where the ride is going to be placed, a 5x5 area, and then we need the dinghy slide with a 1-tile long station. And then I'm going to do a turn here, and then we're going to use the tunnel on a straight piece of track, and then we're going to go up with that same tunnel section. And then I'm going to turn on the cheats of show all operating modes, unlock operating limits, allow arbitrary ride type changes, show vehicles from other track types, and disable vehicle limits. And then now I'm going to change the ride type to the water coaster, and this will allow access to the curved, sloped piece of track. And then I'm going to change it back to the dinghy slide, and we will use a tunneled section to go slope to flat, and then a curve where I'll turn the tunnel off, and then down with the tunnel turned back on. We're going to change it back to the water coaster, and then do that curved drop. And then now we're going to change it back to the dinghy slide one last time and finally flatten out with a tunnel and put the last curve in without the tunnel. But we need to turn on disabled clearance checks for that. And now we have our little ride circuit. And if I change it now to the water coaster, all of the track will be visible, and so we can see the path the ride vehicles will take. So they'll leave the station and enter this infinite loop here. But now we need to build the control track. So if I delete this curve here, we'll put in a larger curve. And then we're going to turn on the water track and do 6 straight pieces here. And then we're going to do a turn, 1 straight piece, another curve, and we'll return to the station. And I will explain why we want to have the water track turned on. It will help make it invisible later. Now we need to go back here and put in that turn that we had recently deleted. So we'll add that back in. And then we just need an entrance and an exit, and the ride has been built. So the reason that we needed to use that water track or the tunnel track is because if it was regular track and you accidentally built another track for another ride through it, you're going to have some weird things happen with the vehicles and they're going to end up on the wrong tracks, like you can see here. And even if you go into the tile inspector and change the track order, you're still going to run into problems where the vehicles are just going on the wrong track. So if we use the tunnel dinghy slide track, which is the same as the water track and the water coaster, the problem is avoided. Now returning to our ride, we are going to set it to powered launch passing station mode with the launch speed of 4 miles per hour. And then for the ride vehicles, we want 1 train, but we're going to set it to the hypercoaster trains, and they actually give you a 15% excitement bonus. And we want 33 cars per train. Seems like a lot, but it will make sense. Now I'm going to test the ride and close it to spawn the vehicles. We want our vehicle 1 to end up on the control track and the rest of the vehicles to end up on the main track. So I'm going to pause the game and then set it to test mode. Now I'm going to make the vehicles see-through, and we can see the 2 different tracks. We want vehicle 1 and then the rest of the vehicles to travel on. We're going to open the tile inspector, and we need to make sure that this tile here, the track on the lowest level in the order of the tile inspector, is what we want the vehicle 1 to go on, which is the wider turn, not the sharper turn. So we can see here, if I raise it up, you can see that it's correct. So next, we are going to unpause the game and then repause it as soon as vehicle 1 has left the station. So I'm going to unpause it and then repause it now, and vehicle 1 is started down the wide turn, and in the tile inspector, I'm going to switch the order of these tracks so the remaining vehicles will now follow the sharper turn. So when I unpause it, it should work as I would like, and it is working. If you mess it up, just respawn the vehicles and try again. But now we are going to watch as the control vehicle 1 travels down the control track, pulling all of the other vehicles around onto our actual ride track. Now I'm going to close the ride, and as you can see, the vehicles are going to start overlapping here, and with the hyper coaster trains, for some reason, they just overlap exactly perfectly, so it works really well for this ride and makes it very easy later on as we change the ride vehicles. And as vehicle 1 is coming into the station, because I closed the ride, it's going to stop there. And now we need to go into the tile inspector. Do not forget this step, but we need to switch the track order again so that vehicle 1 will continue on the control track. So now when I test it, Vehicle 1 will continue on the control track, and the rest of the vehicles will now be stuck infinitely on our ride track loop. And if I change it to the inverted impulse coaster, all of the track is invisible except for the station. That is why we use that tunnel track, because as the inverted impulse coaster, it doesn't have any of those track pieces, so they show up invisible. And now we're going to open the Edit Ride Vehicles plugin. If you don't have it, the link is in the video description below. We're going to select our ride, and we need to go to Vehicle 1, and we need to set it to a powered vehicle. So I'm going to use the Cheshire Cats from the car ride. And we are going to set it to the variant invisible, it's variant 1, and then we can go down to the multiplier and set it to 10, and I want the acceleration to be set at 170, and then the max speed I'm going to set to 47, so this will power the ride. And then now for vehicle 2, we are going to set it to the swinging floorless cars, and then we need to apply that to the rest of the train. So we can go to the drop down here and set it to following vehicles on this train and hit apply. And now all of the vehicles except vehicle 1 are swinging floorless cars. And now we can move to vehicle number 18, and then we are going to set that to the flying saucers. And then to ensure that peeps aren't riding on top of our ride, we need to set the seats to 0. And then I'm going to click the reversed checkbox here because I think it looks better. And then we can go here and hit apply to following vehicles on the train. And so the remainder of the train is now flying saucers, and we have our ride vehicles. Now you might notice some glitching on the flying saucers, and that's because we changed the vehicles while the ride was in motion. So we just let it stop here. They all reset and everything looks as it should. Now vehicle 1 is that Cheshire Cat, and it's slowly trying to gain speed. So what we need to do is increase the number of circuits. So something like 9 should be fine if you want a nice long ride for your peeps. And the ride will eventually get to top speed after a few circuits. As for the color schemes, I'm just going to make everything white, and I'm going to actually pause the game so you can see this better. But if I try to change the colors by vehicle type, let's make vehicle 2 blue. For some reason, it is also making another vehicle blue. I think that's because the cars are all overlapping. So I don't know why it's doing that, but to get around this problem, you can go to the Edit Ride Vehicles plugin, and then you can just manually override the color scheme by changing it in this plugin. So vehicle 2 we can set to blue, and then I can go to vehicle 3 and set that to light blue, and let's just give the entire train a nice colorful vibe as I manually do that for every single vehicle. And now we can open the tile inspector, and the last thing we need to do is make this station here, turn the track to invisible, and then we can go to the entrance building, and I will copy it and then delete it, and then paste it here and rotate it appropriately and hit make usable. And then with the exit building, I will also copy it and then delete it, and then I will place it here and hit paste, and then make sure that it is below the track in the tile inspector order and hit make usable. And now with just a little bit of scenery and a queue line, we're almost done. We just need to go into the paint menu here and make the entrance and exit invisible, and the ride can be open. And as you can see here, it gets some pretty decent stats for a gentle ride. And as we watch the ride start from a stop, it is slowly gaining speed and will eventually hit a top speed of around 24 miles per hour. However, if you want the ride to go faster, you can actually open up that plugin again, and you can just change the max speed down here to something higher if you want it to go faster, for example, or slower. Just play around with that if you'd like. You can also use that plugin to change the vehicles. Instead of the swinging floorless cars, you could make them the face-off cars to make it more of a Star Trooper ride. However, those vehicles do not swing, so it looks a little bit more tame, though it does double the capacity of the ride. Now I have one last optional step. We can set the ride to the water coaster here, and if we want to shrink the footprint of the ride now that we have all the vehicles spawned, you can go into the tile inspector, and we're going to delete all of this straight track except for one tile. So I'm just going to delete it using the tile inspector here, and basically we can shrink the footprint of the ride using another plugin. It is the Scenery Manager plugin, and the link is in the video description. And you just want to turn off surface here, and we have it on raw mode, and we're going to select just this curve here, and then we will hit the cut button, and we can just move it into place and paste it. Again, you only want to do this when the ride is closed, obviously, and then we can reopen the ride, and we have a much shorter circuit. Set it back to the inverted impulse coaster, And now you can increase the number of circuits to whatever you'd like, but we've basically shrunk the ride down from something much larger to something that only occupies a 7x7 tile footprint when you include the invisible track. And then you can always add some more scenery or trackatexture like I did to make it look a little bit more realistic. However, trackatexture is not my forte, so I think this looks more like a floppy pizza, but this is the best I could do. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and make sure to subscribe, because next time we're going to be returning to Rainbow Towers as I show you how to build your very own madhouse. Now this is one of those dark rides where the room spins around you and makes riders feel like they're going upside down, so stay tuned for more.